Hi, this is Robert Hooks, and welcome to the Urban Roundtable. This edition is a special edition for me because we're dealing with theater today, and we're dealing with a play that's just opened called North on South Central Avenue. And South Central Avenue, of course, during the 40s was a tremendous jazz entertainment mecca, entertainment in general mecca, very much like the Harlem Renaissance in New York City, which we all of us old-timers know very well. I'm talking with the producers today. There are four of them, four producers. I'm going to be talking with two in a little bit, and then two to follow them. I want you all to really listen closely because it's music, it's drama, there's some wonderful characters in this play. So let's get to talking about North on South Central Avenue, the new musical, the jazz scene in Los Angeles in the 50s, actually. I'm talking to two of the producers, Carla Dupree Clark and Larry Robinson, two very, very handsome young people from that particular company. Let me start with you, Carla, and just explain to the audience what prompted you guys to do this particular play.
We actually were prompted by Larry, and Larry brought this project to the table. This company was originally three ladies, and we invited Larry into the company back in 1994, and this was the project that he brought with him, at least the idea for the project. And he had a love for it based on the fact that his father was from Mississippi, and he wanted to tell his father's story, some of it, through this wonderful idea of the jazz music that was happening on Central Avenue back in the 40s and 50s.
Larry, let's move over here and talk about that inspiration that you had when you came up with this concept.
Well, you know, as Carla said, we as TPC sort of always threw out ideas, and my father always told great stories. My father was a great storyteller, and since he worked at the 5-4 Ballroom, which was really popular in the 40s and 50s, I brought the idea to Carla and to Nook, my partners, and we embellished it. We just took it and we made it grow. Each performance snowballed into something bigger, and thus you have North on South Central Avenue.
Tell us a little bit about the story then, Carla. I know it's a full-length play.
Yes, it is. It's
full-length musical.
Full-length musical.
Tell us a little bit about the story.
The storyline, it takes place in the Club Alabama, which was a famous club that existed over on Central Avenue back in the heyday. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And it takes place in the Club Alabama, but we wanted to incorporate the past with the present. So we have an older man, Old Willie, who is telling the story to a young male, black male, because we wanted to show the connection between the youth and the elder, and to let people know that, you know, storytelling is an art and it should be continued. So the story unfolds with Old Willie telling Trayvon about how he visited the Club Alabama and all the great jazz legends that he saw when he worked there as a security guard. We have the proprietors of the club, Eloise and Elsie Lomax, and the brother, Bootsy, who is a little person, who fell up on hard times because the Curtis Mosley character and Manny Brandenburg character who decide they want to take the property away from them, the Club Alabama.
Club Alabama. Right.
So that's what basically happens. But during all of that, you see cabaret dancers and many of the great jazz legends, Billie Holiday, Dorothy Dandridge, Ella Fitzgerald, tap dancer, quite a few of them as the story unfolds. Needless to say, they don't get the club because there's flashbacks between old Willie and young Willie.
Let me stop you, because I don't want to give too much of it away. Okay. That's enough of basically the overall story to talk about at this point. Now, Larry, you're in the play. What do you play, and do you sing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm in and out of the play. I'm interwoven in terms of, the play requires a lot of energy. We're talking about a nightclub. We're talking about the heyday, Central Avenue in this heyday period. And so I play a series of characters in terms of Little Walter, the famous Chicago blues harmonicist. And before that, I'm playing Little Walter in the South, in the real South, with young Willie. And then I'm in the club, interwoven in the club in these wonderful suits of the period with the hats and the big ties and the shoes.
Okay. Now, you didn't bring your harmonica today, did you?
No, I didn't bring it.
Okay. I was going to ask you to hit a couple of notes, But now, you mentioned the suits, and you mentioned this. I've seen the pictures, and we're going to insert some pictures from the production. But we're looking at a pretty expensive looking show. Did it cost a lot of money?
Well, yes, it did.
But we were innovative, right, Carl?
Yes, yes.
Well, when you say innovative, I mean, because look, I'm a producer and I produce theater, and I looked at those pictures and I thought, this is a big dollar production. How did you raise the money?
Asking it shall be given in some cases, and we asked the cast, did we call it, to bring in some pieces, and we matched pieces. Secondhand stores, anywhere I could see something that I could pick up at a garage sale, picking it up, Carla, and we just have a...
Hold that point. That's not a bird.
It's a seagull.
No, it's my car. Was that a bird?
It was a seagull.
I was doing a movie with Otto Preminger many years ago, and we're shooting a scene. Bea Richards played my mother, and we're shooting this great scene, very dramatic scene, and she's dying, and she's playing my mother, and I'm there at the bed, and then all of a sudden we hear. Now Otto, and we were trying to continue the scene, but we can't. This chicken is going crazy up under the house. So Otto says, cut! What's going on? So the prop says, he says, what is that noise? He says, there's a chicken under the house. He says, Joe Versiglia was the prop man. He says, Joe, go and kill the chicken. And so Joe crawled up under the house to get the chicken, and the chicken was making all kinds of noise. So we were really down for about maybe a half hour trying to catch this chicken. So he says, when you catch the chicken, I want to see you kill him, because Joe wasn't going to kill the chicken. Actually had to chop the chicken's head off because Otto wanted the chicken dead.
Is that Harry Sundell?
Yeah.
Harry Sundell?
Yeah. Yes. Gee, what a memory. Well, you don't kill a chicken in the South and don't eat them. You got to eat them. Okay, you ready? Yeah. Let's move on. You were saying about the production, and we were talking about the cost of this production. You were saying that everybody pitched in.
Yes, they did, didn't they, Carla?
Everybody pitched in with costuming, and it's amazing because we did receive an award for the costuming on the show.
Who picked up the award?
We also had a couple of young ladies who worked with us with costuming, with creating some of the costuming for the dancers, and with going out and helping us to look for the pieces. And so we gave the award to the young lady who was very instrumental in providing that support. But they all got awards because they won for best ensemble as well.
Oh,
so everyone got awards for the show.
Theater after my own heart. Theater for the people, by the people. I'm sorry, Larry, you were saying.
Oh, that award was the 2004 NAACP Theater Awards.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Congratulations, guys. It's wonderful. Now, you were saying that You act, you play several roles. I was going to ask you, Carla, about the women. You talked about Billie Holiday and Bessie Smith and...
No,
not Bessie?
No. Not Bessie. Billie, Ella, Dorothy, Sarah,
okay.
Dinah.
Oh, okay. So that's 5. So now Big Mama Thornton, that's 6. So you have 6 women, 6 great singers of our time. Do you have 6 singers, or you have
those are all singers.
All separate singers
They
playing?
all sing in the show, and they represent these characters.
That's wonderful.
And then we have Little Walter, who is Larry, and Cab Calloway for the male. And sometimes we incorporate a Nat King Cole.
So you have the flexibility to change up. That's wonderful. What about the music? Now, is it live music? I'm going to be talking to your musical director coming up. We'll talk about the music and how he kind of put it all together, but live musicians?
Live musicians on stage, jazz band.
Is this an equity production, or is it a waiver production?
Not yet, but it will be. This is
Yes.
a hard independent piece that we put together with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that we want to be equity, because, as you know, once you perform in an equity house, big time, then you have to take care of the actors from that point on.
Of course.
Right.
So now, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit about the generational aspect of the story itself. You mentioned that the griot tells the story. Who's talking to who here, and what generational times are we talking about?
Actually, the older gentleman is the person. He's trying to communicate to the young black male. He wants him to understand that he doesn't know everything. And that's his way of pulling the young male into his world of positiveness, really.
Let me just inject it for 1 second. I want you to continue, but when you say young male, are we talking about the young, hip guys with the pants down, hanging low, and describe that young male you're talking about?
We didn't want him to be totally
Hip-hop.
Gangster,
right,
so to speak, but we wanted him to be aware of Central Avenue today, what it's like living there, what it's like living in a city where there's drugs and prostitution and all of these negative things that are so pronounced throughout the world when you talk about Los Angeles, California, and South Central LA. Those are the things that people recognize when you mention this part of Los Angeles. So we wanted to show the positiveness that was going on in Los Angeles, South Central LA, back in the 1940s and 50s, and we wanted this young black man to understand that it doesn't have to be like it is now, because it was a time when it was very positive, when all of these wonderful things was going on over there, when black people owned businesses, when they were doing so many positive things, you know. And so we wanted to introduce that to the younger audience that comes out to see the piece. And we found in doing this show that the elders are so enthusiastic because it brings back memories of a time that they experienced, and the youth are excited about it because they actually didn't know that all of these things happened on Central Avenue in Los Angeles, and they are, did this really happen? Yes, it actually did. Was Billy? Yes, they actually were. And so we feel very proud of our creation on North and South Central Avenue, because it can connect the youth and the elders. It connects not only the East Coast with the West Coast, because the Lincoln Theater, yeah, Los Angeles had the Lincoln, New York had the Apollo, New York had the Cotton Club, we had the Club Alabama.
Yeah,
and
at the same time.
Yes, and we had all these wonderful people performing here, and we wanted the youth of the city. That's our message. This is we provide our message through the pen. and we have been blessed to be able to receive acceptance from not only the black culture, but from the white culture, the Latino culture. We've had Asian, everybody come and view this piece because of the music, but when they come to see it, they have an attachment. The attachment is not only the music, but it's the period.
Yes.
They were there. There's so many elders still living today who experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
They went to the Club Alabama.
Right.
They loved it.
They said we captured it. We actually had a person come to see the show who was a Club Alabama dancer. We've had a person come to see the show who was a Club Alabama waitress, and they're still here.
That's amazing. The juxtaposition of the generations. I mean, when you talk about, and that's why, I mean, I think it's so educational, socially educational, to really be able to let the people know what was happening, and especially the young people know what was happening. Yeah, very important. I think a very educational piece as well as entertaining. I want to talk a little bit about the cast, because you have all these dedicated people working for practically no money, obviously very, very talented. How did you go about that? Who are they, first of all? Briefly, let us know what the makeup of the cast is like.
I'd love to get into names. I'm going to get into one special name, but it's a potpourri of incredible people, as you mentioned. One of our characters, Michael Massengale, who is now stricken with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's suffering right now. Young man has taken this character and developed it beyond your imagination. Old Willie, who tells us that story that everyone is enamored by, who are just taken into. I think the news article said he takes your hand and walks you through a period that you wish you could actually.
Yeah, I read that. Yes.
We have wonderful actors who are actually doing film and television. Myself at times when I can get some work. And these singers, when we audition them, I think this is a true testament to the piece, Carly, because out of the 5-6 years that we've been running this piece, the same people that we've had always ask, please do not let my part be taken away to someone else. Even though I'm traveling, I'll be back for it. And they come back in time to do it.
Yeah,
because there's such an attachment.
Yeah, it's the kind of show, and I remember The Blacks in New York. It was an incredible play. The actors would go off and do another play, and that play would close. They'd come back to The Blacks. An actor would go do a television or a movie, come back, and they would always come back. It's that kind of spirit in cast that we're talking about here. Talk to me about the impression that it has on the people in the company when they read these things and when people talk about the show itself.
The performance that we have in the show, I've found it to be an absolute joy to work with them, to direct them, and they have worked extremely hard to make this show a success. We, Tanook, Larry, and myself, we could not have done it without their support, without their commitment, as you say. The majority of them are committed to making this show a complete success. And they don't want to leave it because of the simple fact that they have been mentioned in so many reviews from so many major news sources in this city. Their work has been favorably mentioned. Each one of them has been spoken of individually and collectively, and they're just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful group of people.
A lot of people don't realize that when you put on a piece like this, to me the most important aspect of any production is the cast. And it doesn't matter how much money goes into it. So I always like to kind of talk about the cast of the piece. You mentioned the director, and we had not talked about the director of North on South Central Avenue. Is it a collaboration in that sense as well, or who did direct this piece?
I actually directed the piece
Okay.
with input from Larry and from Tanuk. But for the most part, I am the director of the show. I put a lot of work into it, and I'm very, very proud to have been able to accept an award for Best Director from the NAACP in their 2004 Theater Awards ceremony.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you. That's the reason why the cast is, as you say, the most important part of this show. I could not have done what I did without their support.
Now, be honest, there were times when they drove you out of your mind.
Absolutely. There were times, but it was a pleasure, and it still is. I look forward to working with them whenever we go into rehearsals, and they come through. As Larry was saying, we have about 5 people in the cast who has been with us since the very beginning, since we started the show back in 1999. The rest of the people, I would say about half of them have been there for the last 3-4 years that we've done the piece.
Now, will they? How much time will they give you to rehearse the play at the Ford?
We actually we're really good because we prepare for about 4 to 6 weeks in advance. That's rehearsing for like 3 hours, twice a week.
Where do you do that?
At Manchester Elementary School. I must say that Tanuk and Larry and Kevin are all educators and within the Los Angeles School District.
Oh, okay.
And so Tanuk has just retired from that wonderful position of educating our youth from about 45 years, right? And she was able to secure that space for us to rehearse in. So we've been there for the last 3-4 years rehearsing.
So now they will allow you to come in for the 20th, for the 19th and the 20th performance. They'll allow you how much time to adjust to the stage?
The Ford? Mm-hmm. We will actually have one tech.
Just one tech?
Just one tech.
What's the set like?
It's fabulous. I think in those pictures that you'll probably get, it's very elaborate in terms of the Club Alabama, which everybody who was anybody came there, Howard Hughes and everybody. It's got a nice, the color to it is so perfect for lighting because it doesn't bounce too much in the actors. And at the same time, we see these wonderful costumes and the ties and the sequence dresses.
So it's a very handsome production.
Very professional, very professional.
Gorgeous.
That's what we're able to do, what we can do in the length of time we have.
Now, you were going to mention something about an angel.
We've had a few angels that have come to our aid in this show, which is incredible because, as you know, the shoestring budget, there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Schultz who built this fantastic set that you will get a chance to see when you come and see the production. And for those of you who will come and see the production, you'll love the set. It's incredible. And he built it because he fell in love with the show out at the Norris Theater when we performed in 2005.
So you've done this play for how many years now?
The play's been running since 99.
Get out.
Right, 1999.
So, but now you're performing at the Ford Theater, at the Ford Amphitheater. Tell me about that.
We were invited to the Ford, actually, and to add to, we have been running since 1999, but we really couldn't afford to run continuously. Okay. So we've only been able to run a couple of shows here and there, a couple of shows here and there, because the cast is quite large. It ranges anywhere from 25 to 40 people on stage, including all the extras and everybody. But because of our running throughout the city, we ran in Canoga Park, Hollywood several times. Stella Adler, we had a wonderful run there for 6 weeks. Wow. Santa Monica at the Miles Playhouse, we ran there. Palos Verdes, we took it there for a couple of days. Nice. And we did a 7 Sunday jazz series at the Long Beach Playhouse in Long Beach. And so it's been over the city, you know. But because of all of that, we ran into the managing director of the Ford Amphitheater at the WAA conference in Albuquerque, and he had heard about the show, and so he says, I would really like to have this show, and he invited us to come in
wonderful.
to their summer season.
So the show runs there Friday, Saturday, the 19th and the 20th of May. So we want you guys to go see the show for sure. I'm certainly going to come see it. I'm not quite sure which one I'll be able to make, but I just absolutely love the idea, truly, from my heart. The fact that you guys, your blood, sweat, and tears, as you said, Larry, but I know it takes a lot of stamina to put a theater piece on, and to do it the way you guys have done it. I take my hat off to you, and I don't even wear a hat. It's just a great accomplishment, and we're going to encourage people to come down and see you guys at the amphitheater. And I think probably you want to see this thing go to New York one day, don't you?
No, that's what we're working for.
That's our goal.
Yeah, well, it's a great undertaking. North on South Central Avenue, May 19th and 20th is a Friday and a Saturday at the Ford Amphitheater, which is over on Cahuenga Pass, and it is there, right? Yes, anyway. Cahuenga Boulevard, yeah, right. It sounds like a fabulous production, and we're going to get to talk to two more producers, two more of your colleagues in a bit. But Carla and Larry, thank you very much for coming to the table.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. We'll be back. Okay. We're back, and guess what? We're still talking about North on South Central Avenue, the new musical that is going to, well, new, I mean, you know, they started this thing a few years ago. We'll talk about that. It's going to be appearing and playing at the Ford Amphitheater on the 19th and 20th of May, and I'm sitting with Kevin O'Neill and Tanook.
Yes.
And Tanook and Kevin are producers, and Kevin is the musical director. First, I'm going to ask Tanook what the name means.
This was a name that was given to me by my uncle when I was a young lady. And he said the name meant nice lady. And he would always call me Tanook, and I would never answer.
I think it's a beautiful name.
Thank you. And when I started writing, I wanted another name. And I thought about, well, I'll use this name my uncle gave me. And so now I just go by Tanook.
Tanook, that's T-U-N-O-O-K.
Correct.
Tanook. Now, we talked early on with Carla and Larry about the play and how it kind of came to fruition. Let me ask you about the challenge for the music in this play. Talk about the music and what kind of a challenge it was to play around with it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. The musical North on South Central, it's been running for off and on with legs, as we say, since we debatably about 1988 or
1998.
Now we think about 1998. I've been involved. I've had the pleasure of being involved with some portion of the music, playing the music or doing things really since its first inceptions where they used musicians. Here lies our challenge. One of the things that I'm so impressed about North on South Central is the book, is the story. I don't want to give that much away, but it's a real human story, and it's a story that highlights our humanity as people trying to make it. It highlights a lot of the wonderful things about Los Angeles that, you know, we deserve to remember because they're still there. The Club Alabama, the Lincoln Theater, the Dunbar Hotel, and all the wonderful talent that passed through them. What we have now, or we have had, is we've had these beautiful entertainers passing through the Club Alabama. Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington, Cab Calloway, that goes on. That's a vehicle for beautiful music to be there. I mean, you know, with all the beautiful things in life, there was beautiful music. There just had to be.
Well, that's actually how they survived that time. I mean, not the only way, but the music was just such an incredible injection of energy.
Absolutely. And it was really a representation of people in their spirit. Because, see, when you're coming off of the 1920s and whatnot, you're coming off of the Reconstruction era. You're coming off of some very repressive Southern laws, and you're coming off of many people moving out of the South into the great cities, into Chicago, into New York, and then into Los Angeles, also this growing city of angels.
Tanuk, talk to me about the company TPC, the Theater and Perception Consortium. Talk to me about its inception, how it came about, and how you were involved.
TPC originally came about with two ladies, Carla Dupree Clark and Antoine James. What happened was I had created a piece called Mood Swings, and Carla was featured in the show. And I ran that particular play on a shoestring budget, and I was able to get quite a bit of an audience out to see it. And Carla and Tony, I'll call her Tony, right, approached me and said, you know, why don't we combine our efforts? Well, let me back up. Prior to that, Tony had created a play called Oprah Trench Karaoke Club, and it was presented at the time at the Inner City Cultural Center in a competition. And she came to me and asked me to take a lead role, and I said, oh, I don't do anything like that. All I do is just write. And she says, oh, no, you can do that. So in the process, we did the play, then I did mine, and she saw all the people that I was able to amass to come out. So we wanted to form a company, and we said, well, let's do some collaborative writing here. And so it started like that. And in the meantime, Tony had to leave the city and move to Atlanta because of family, our mom's illness. So she told us, we says, oh, we need another partner. She says, well, why don't you guys get a man this time? And we says, okay, no problem. So we said, well, who? And so she says, I know just the person.
Enter Larry.
Enter Larry. Well, it was so neat because Larry and Carla and myself, as well as Tony, we had performed in various poetry venues, spoken word. So I'd worked with Larry and Carla in a company called the Griots. And so she said, Larry Robinson. And we said, oh, yeah, we know Larry. We worked with him. Yeah. So we called Larry, and he came over, and he met with us. And we asked him, would he be interested in being a part of the Theater Perception Consortium?
Now, how'd you come up with the name? Excuse me.
The name, we sat around a coffee table in Carla's apartment, and we thought about it, and actually Tony thought of the name, if I'm not mistaken. She says, how about Theater Perception Consortium? And you know perception is everything, girls. That's what she said. We says, that's just great, we'll use that. So that's how we came.
I think it's a great name.
It was a collaborative with the three of us, so we fit a consortium, theater. We're giving out a perception here of something, and perception is everything.
It sure is. I think it's a wonderful title for a company. Kevin, now, are you from Los Angeles?
Oh, you know, I'm like so many people that yes, I am from here, but my parents are from Arkansas and Chicago and Louisiana and places like that. My dad used to always tell me about Jimmy Lunsford's band and Fletcher Henderson's band. You know, of course, always Duke Ellington. Sure. But to listen out for those two bands, because I might not know them, and I'm starting to know more about their lives and the type of entertainment they gave. You know, a funny thing has happened. You know, Tanuk is a great writer, and we sit up and we talk sometime about what we think is going on just today, who's winning the Oscars and what people are and aren't writing about. The TPC, they've done a wonderful job of putting together a story that really captures the human spirit. One thing is starting to happen, though, that's amazing. Since they've been so kind as to bring me on, these characters, the characters we know and we love, the Ellas, the Billies, I mean, music is my life. They're starting to become their own. they're actually starting to represent themselves today through music, through song. And so what has happened is that our presentation that we will have at the John Anson Ford on May 19th and 20th is completely a departure and growing from anything that this particular musical has done in the past, and that we're going to have all new music. In the past, you might have heard, you know, Billie Holiday singing God Bless the Child, or someone else singing A Train. Those things are wonderful. They're timeless. They can't be replaced. But what's starting to happen is that those characters are actually starting to come alive now, because they have a story to tell. You know, just in the last day or so of this taping, we've been celebrating Billie Holiday's birthday.
Yes.
And you know, Billie
Today.
she only lived to be what, 44 or something as such.
45, something
you know,
like that.
and she still has a big, and part of the story is about repression. Part of the story is about corruption. Part of the story is about faith. Part of the story is that it takes all of those things to have, you know, a heck of a great time, and a collective consciousness that brings, you know, people together. It was another time.
That's amazing. I can see that it has kind of infused a lot of energy in the four of you. Tanook, you were saying that, now, did you write the whole book, or is it a kind of a collaboration?
It's collaborative. What happens, one of us will write Larry came with the concept. You know, let's write something about what was happening on Central Avenue. My dad used to tell us this story about all these famous people that he saw. So what we did was, one person writes one scene,
Okay.
no matter what it is, and they give it to the other two. And we take it, and we all go back to our separate homes, and we write. And then we bring it back together and put it together in scenes and edit it and the whole 9 yards. It's amazing how we do it. We really marvel at what we do, because we wonder, how are we doing this when we're not writing side by side, you know? But when one person writes a scene, we take off from that scene and build the story and go from there.
Well, it's an extraordinary piece of collaboration to do it that way. It certainly is innovative. I don't think I've ever, I know in television what they do is they'll have a writer, a staff writer, write a scene, and that staff writer will then take that scene and hand it to the lead writer, and that. But I've never heard it done the way you guys have done it.
We have written quite a few pieces, and we've produced several other pieces, but all of them that we've written, that's how we've written them. And we, like I said, we've marveled at it, because when we bring it back together and we say, oh yeah, this will fit here, this will fit there, and put it together, and we come up with the story. It's amazing.
So Kevin, when you were offered to become a part of this group of wonderful artists, how was it an easy decision for you to make, or did you decide, since you told us about your background, your dad, and people, the music that came out of that period, were you close to the music, and that's why you accepted it? What was the decision of joining these wonderful artists?
I'm here by their gracious invitation to come participate as the composer. It's something that we've talked about. It's something that the play is screaming for, that it needs. Now, it wasn't that hard a decision to make, and I'll tell you why. They have a secret weapon that's in this musical that they've been using all along, and that secret weapon is our choreographer, Miss Melanie Lee. Miss Melanie has been with the production, I think, since towards the inception.
Yes.
And boy, she is a jewel. She should be here now. Melanie, just know I'm talking you up, darling. When you put her choreography, she's not hard to look at, let me tell you. And I mean her entire troupe, totally crack professional, totally just beautiful. They bring so much to the story. And when you see the acting, and the dancing and the music, and we will have a full orchestra with full horns and all those types of things. It's bigger than life. You really get the feeling of a black and tan. It's not, you know, so often now, you know, things get compartmentalized, you know, like here's the acting, and here's the dancing, and here's the music, and this is, but I don't believe that when people were letting it happen on Central Avenue, which was known as East LA then because it was east of me.
Right.
I don't believe that they were separating them at all. So when you get involved with this production, you get all of those things.
That's amazing. I agree with that. That certainly is a great motivation to want to participate in it. Back to the actual show. Now, I understand that you got invited to do the show at the amphitheater, the Anson Ford Amphitheater. It's just for the two performances. Is there if you do very, very well, they'll bring you back?
Well, we are a part of their summer partnership program. So yes, we can be invited back if it works like that. I understand that there are several groups that have been back more than 10 times.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we do, there's hope there that we will be invited back again. We would love to come back if we get invited back to the Ford. But we're also looking forward to moving the piece. We'd like to tour it regionally, nationally, and internationally. As well as, we're working on a screenplay right now of the piece. We're writing.
We're just going right on through the roof, aren't we?
We have great hopes here for this piece.
Well,
we have struggled. We have totally struggled. Money-wise, it has been really hard,
sure.
You know, and we put everything into it, you know, to make it happen. And the actors and actresses that are in the show, they've been very dedicated and working with us because, you know, starting off, it wasn't nobody making a lot of money on the stage here.
Right.
So, but in terms of the piece itself, like I said, we want to move it. We want to move it. We want to tour it. And I would also like to say that aside from winning the Best Ensemble, we were nominated for 9 awards with the NAACP Theater Awards, not the Image Awards, Theater Awards, and we won 4. We got Best Sound, Best Director, Best Costuming, and Best Ensemble.
Wonderful.
So, and we're consistently enhancing the piece. Okay.
Now you want to travel, you want to move the piece. I mean, I would think that the best way to do it would be to find a home before you want to start traveling and touring. Find another home here in the Los Angeles area. But again, it's going to take an infusion of some dollars, and because people will come and give you their all, but that doesn't last that long. But you guys have been very fortunate. You've had these young singers and dancers and actors just doing it for nothing.
Well, if I may, we've got a new soundtrack that's coming that we've just recorded for the release on May 19th and 20th. The soundtrack features some wonderful artists. It features Barbara Morrison. It features our full Kevin O'Neill Orchestra. We have a group that's very close to my heart called Radiant Voices, which is our jazz vocal group that does many things. And they're very loyal and very dedicated. Those kinds of things are hard to come by.
They are.
So we have that, you know, infused into the soundtrack that's coming. And the people are just making it happen because it's a story that needs to be told. For instance, one of the things I'm learning about Los Angeles, and that I already felt in the music, you know, we have a strong Latino presence here in this city, in this, you know, the city of angels.
And it's growing.
Well, it's the state is named from Queen Khalifa, right? Yeah. So, but one of the things that we find through the music and through studying Katherine Dunham and her dance and bringing that into our choreographer is that we had a very, very strong Cuban presence, and we had a strong black Cuban presence and more interaction going on between our communities here and in Cuba in the 1940s and the 1950s that we, you know, because of the political situation, we don't have that same exchange. You know, I'm a musician and not a politician, so I reach out for those that are reaching back and forth with respect, and that's something that was intact more so at that point in our history.
Now there's still a pretty large black Cuban group here in Los Angeles, and I think every year they do a Cuban festival. And my ex-wife, who works for the Cultural Affairs Department, used to produce that, and I remember going to that Saturday event, and I mean the dance and the music is just unbelievable. But you're right, back in the day.
Yes, and see, Cuba has really always been, I think, our guiding light to Africa. There were many things that had to do with their rhythms and their sacred music that they retained that they really didn't even keep in later colonial Africa. They've also been the guiding light for the Spanish-speaking Americas, for South America, especially for entertainment. I mean, like, oh man, when Benny Moré was hitting and was making it in Mexico, you know, or Perez Prado, there was nothing like that. And we were feeling that here, and we're feeling it in our music.
Okay, now you mentioned something very interesting about the Latina community, the Cuban community, and how it was a part of, in that period. Talk on that for a bit, about how they interfaced with the realities of the laws of Los Angeles and the United States, for that matter. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, it was a repressive time for people of color, but it was also a time of common goals that we like to think are framed in Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, as far as having a consciousness. And that consciousness had to do with being, you know, having a better life. And that is what America has always been about, is a chance to have a better life. And there were so many people that were, you know, congregating amongst themselves where they could go. You know, there's always been an uptown and a downtown, whether you were in New Orleans or whether you were in New York or whether you were in
Washington, D.C.
Or Washington, D.C. So there are places where you are welcome and places where you are not. And the places where you are welcome, you actually make the best of what you have, and that became the best of what America, as a fine art, had to offer with jazz music, and everybody else is about caught on to it by now. So those are some of the things that we're representing, and sometimes that independence gets reflected in the play.
Yeah, it is reflected in the play, because there's a scene, the Billie Holiday scene, where she comes into the nightclub and she's singing, and when she's on the microphone, she congratulates the nightclub owners, L.C. and Eloise, and she states, you know, she says, at least I don't have to come through the back door here. And she speaks in terms, because she has already played up in Hollywood and on the West Side,
where she couldn't
stay in the hotels, because all of the artists at that time, they were performing on the West Side, but they were not allowed to stay in those hotels, so they would all congregate and come down to the Dunbar. And with the Club Alabama being right next to the Dunbar, they would perform there. And so in this one particular scene, she makes that little brief statement, you know, she says, I want to congratulate you guys, I love being here, and at least I don't have to come through the back door.
And it was very, very true in that period in South Central, because that's why they attracted all those wonderful, wonderful musicians and entertainers that you talk about in the play.
Another thing, if I may interject, I'd like to bring in the fact that we also wanted this piece to be an educational tool for students to understand the history of what was happening in Los Angeles during that time.
Very, very important.
As well as to get them to understand and appreciate jazz.
It's very important. And it's something that you might make a point of when you're moving the play and talking to city officials, city council people, and moving the play, that it does have that educational value, and you just might find yourself getting some support from places that you would not ordinarily get from, because they probably won't come to see the play, or you know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Make it a point. It is that's a great point to make for this particular play, because the educational value is really quite something. We could go on and on, but
Yes, we could. Because you're so handsome and debonair, and I mean, you know, so many may have one or the other, but you have both, and hey, that's I think how people like to represent when they were out at the Club Alabama on Central Avenue. I mean, I'm just putting a little parallel here so we all know how people got their groove on, so to speak.
Right.
And if you look at the pictures or you see the old videos, people were dressed. They came out to have a good time. So we want people to come out to have a good time when they come out to our production.
So, Kevin, Tanook, I wanted to just thank you both for sharing this wonderful experience. It's got to be a great experience. And I know the hard knocks and how difficult it was because I'm from the theater and I produced on shoestring for most of my adult life in theater, so I know how difficult it is. The one thing that I know that the four of you have, that you need to have in order to do what you guys have done and to keep doing it, is commitment. You have to be so seriously committed to doing what you're doing. So on behalf of the Urban Roundtable audience, I want to thank the both of you for being with us. Good luck with the play. I'll be there, and I hope you guys will come down and see North on South Central Avenue at the amphitheater on the 19th and the 20th of May. So do that. You'll enjoy yourselves. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure.